Daniel Kellner is at a boxing match when two agents corner him. They say if he wants to see his girlfriend Jane alive, he needs to come outside right now. They take his backpack and start checking everything inside it. Agent Boyd takes him out to the parking lot where their boss, Noah Scanlon, is waiting. Daniel demands to see Jane, so they pull her out of a nearby car. Noah demands to know the names of everyone Daniel is working with, and another agent announces that the device is in the bag. Noah puts on protective gloves to take it out, but Daniel also sneaks a glove onto his own hand. When Noah opens the box, it is completely empty. Daniel pulls the real device out of his pocket, showing it to everyone. The agents point their guns at him, but Noah tells them to stand down because firing a shot might activate the device. Daniel tells Noah to soften his grip because he doesn't know its true power. Using the device as a defense, Daniel grabs his backpack, gets into the car with Jane, and flees the scene. Inside the car, a confused Jane says the agents told her he committed treason. Daniel says he will explain everything later and asks her for a bag so he can safely put the device inside it. He calls his associate Hugo and informs him about the situation. Hugo tells him he needs to hold on to the device for now and that their team will take it at the right time. Daniel is worried, but Hugo tells him to take shelter at a safe place and get rid of everything they can use to track him. Daniel breaks his phone and tells Jane they need to go to a place where he has never been before. Jane says she knows a perfect spot. Agents arrive back at the headquarters, where Noah is informed that military tensions are escalating rapidly with Russia. Noah is more concerned with the security breach and orders his team to locate all the employees who didn't show up for work. Daniel worked there as a cybersecurity officer. Because they still haven't leaked any information to the public, Noah deduces that there is a whole team behind Daniel making calculated decisions. Boyd walks in and informs Noah that the director of biological assets, Hugo, is missing, and his desk has been completely cleared out. Daniel and Jane arrive at a secluded convent. Jane greets Sister Mora, and it turns out Jane used to be a nun. After tending to Jane, the sister tells Daniel she is not going to ask what he did, but he needs to keep Jane out of it and leave her safely at the convent. Daniel is shocked to learn Jane was a nun. Jane explains she was just a novice but left 3 years ago after losing her faith. She points out that he is the one keeping a much bigger secret. Daniel reveals he works for a secret government organization called Wardex. He stole the data he was supposed to protect because he believes people need to know the truth. He reveals he was imprisoned for cybercrime in the past, and after he got out, Wardex recruited him. He apologizes to her for making her a part of this danger. Margaret Fairchild is a local weather news reporter in Kansas City where she lives with her boyfriend, Jackson. She wants to move up to being a hard news reporter and shows Jackson her audition tape. He says it is great, but she is still worried about her career not moving forward. Jackson tries to comfort her when suddenly a stray bird flies into the room and sits on the table right in front of her. The moment she looks at it, Margaret goes into an intense fugue state. Jackson quickly shoos away the bird, and she snaps back to normal, but she immediately starts talking in rapid Russian. A confused Jackson asks her when she learned Russian. She snaps back to English and is completely confused by her own behavior. Jackson wants to press for more answers, but she realizes she is late and needs to go to work. On the road, a police officer stops her for speeding. She apologizes and says she is late for work, but the officer tells her to get out of the car. Margaret looks him dead in the eyes and suddenly says that his wife didn't mean what she said to him this morning. She was just tired, and he should go home and say something nice to her. The officer stands there completely paralyzed with confusion as Margaret goes into detail about what his wife likes and what he is thinking. She calmly tells him she is going to go, and she leaves him standing on the asphalt. At the news studio, the televisions report that Russia and the USA are very close to war, and World War III may start at any moment. Margaret arrives at the studio, where her boss is frustrated because they are going live in a few minutes. Hurriedly, she gets prepared. A visiting Korean expert is upset about something, but because nobody speaks Korean, the production is stuck. The producer tells Margaret to hurry to her position, but Margaret looks at her and says she should call the police because her friend needs her help. Margaret then walks over to talk to the Korean man, effortlessly clearing up the confusion. Her boss asks how she knows Korean, but Margaret says she doesn't actually speak Korean. She goes in front of the camera and the broadcast goes live. As she starts speaking, she suddenly feels incredibly sick. She stops reading the teleprompter and starts speaking in a mysterious, ancient foreign language. Confused, the control room cuts her from the live feed and she instantly collapses heavily onto the stage as everyone rushes to check on her. A car arrives at the convent to pick up Daniel. He says goodbye to Jane and promises that after making everything right, he will come back for her. He gets into the car, but Jane decides to get in right next to him, stating she wants to know exactly what is going on. Together they leave for a secondary safe house. Noah is at a high-level military meeting when an agent interrupts him to show him Margaret's video, which has gone viral across the internet. The agent explains she is a local weather lady in Kansas City, and the strange language she spoke is an exact match to a classified language in their database. Noah immediately orders his team to find her before Hugo does. At the hospital, doctors are doing an MRI scan on Margaret. Meanwhile, Daniel and Jane arrive at an underground safe house. As they walk in, they notice several woodland animals standing completely still, staring at them. Daniel says their stares are a bit weird. Inside, Jane closes the window blinds and demands that Daniel tell her everything. Back at the hospital, the doctor tells Margaret and Jackson that her tests are completely abnormal and asks if it has something to do with her father's history with Parkinson's disease. Margaret interrupts and asks who the strange men standing outside the room are. The doctor claims they are FBI agents who want to question her, but Margaret looks at them through the glass and says they are definitely not the FBI. The doctor tries to talk about a traumatic experience that happened to Margaret when she was a child, but Margaret says she doesn't want to talk about it and doesn't remember. Jackson chimes in, explaining that she has horrific nightmares where she thrashes around and talks about wild animals and a house in the woods. The doctor gets a phone call and steps out of the room. Margaret immediately argues with Jackson for telling the doctor about her childhood trauma. She gets up from the bed, locks eyes with an agent in the hallway, and her mind floods with his thoughts. She tells Jackson that the man is thinking of a guy named Daniel Kellner, and they want him dead. She tells Jackson to pretend she needs help going to the washroom. They trick the staff, grab her things, change her clothes, and escape through the back door. At the safe house, Daniel takes out his encrypted external drives, boots up his laptop, and shows Jane several classified government videos. The footage shows President Richard Nixon meeting a famous TV star at an airbase, taking him to a secret lab, and showing him rows of dead alien bodies. He shows her more clips and warns her that it gets disturbing. The next video shows military doctors performing a live surgery on a conscious alien that is screaming in pain. Daniel slams the laptop closed, explaining that this is 79 years of a massive government cover-up. At the Wardex headquarters, agents open a biometric vault built for 3 alien devices, but 2 are missing. They take out the only remaining device and prepare Noah to use it. Boyd warns that Hugo is the only scientist who knew how to use them properly, but Noah doesn't care. He grabs the device tightly, closing his eyes to concentrate entirely on locating Daniel, but he is completely unable to force a psychic connection. Frustrated, he realizes that since Hugo gave Daniel the job, Daniel must have something special they don't know about. Noah drops the device and orders his team to gather every piece of information on Daniel's girlfriend, Jane. Daniel tells Jane that Wardex is experimenting on aliens and reverse engineering their technology for their own political and corporate benefit. He admits he was part of it until he saw the videos, and now he and Hugo have planned a full planetary disclosure to tell the world the truth. Jane worries about the psychological effects it will have on regular people. Daniel says he can't control how people react, but telling the truth is his moral duty. Jane disagrees, saying that if people see this horror, they will completely lose their faith in God, and faith is the only thing giving people hope in a world on the brink of war. She notes that even though she lost her own faith, she knows how important it is to keep society stable. Daniel doesn't want to argue and says he needs to step outside to call Hugo since the safe house has no cell service. On the highway, something suddenly snaps inside Margaret's head. She frantically asks Jackson for his phone, dials Daniel's number, and tells him not to go back inside the house because the agency has found him and a strike team is coming to kill him. Jackson gets completely spooked by her behavior and takes his phone back. Daniel hangs up, looks down the road, and sees hundreds of black agency SUVs arriving at the property. Inside the house, Jane sits on the couch in a complete fugue state, blankly holding a kitchen knife. Daniel sneaks through the brush, hijacks an idling agency car, and drives straight through their barricade under heavy gunfire. He drives the car directly into the front wall of the house, runs inside, grabs the catatonic Jane, and bursts out the back of the property. A high-speed vehicle chase follows. Back at the base, Noah is holding the device tightly, actively using his mind to control Jane's movements. Under his influence, Jane takes out the knife to stab Daniel. Suddenly, a pursuing agency car rams them from behind, and the heavy impact causes the knife to fly out of her hand. She grabs the weapon a second time. Daniel looks over, sees her dilated eyes, and starts screaming her name to break the spell. Struggling against Noah's mental control, Jane exerts all her willpower and drives the knife straight into her own hand to break the psychic connection. She snaps back to normal, and miles away at the base, the sudden mental backlash causes Noah to suffer a violent seizure, dropping the device as medical teams rush to help him. The agents continue chasing Daniel's car, successfully shooting out his rear tires. The road narrows suddenly, and a pursuing agent's car crashes violently, completely blocking the path for the rest of the SUVs. Daniel pulls over, and a crying Jane hugs him, apologizing for trying to hurt him. He reassures her that it wasn't her fault. Back at the base, Boyd tries to pick up the fallen device from the floor. The moment his bare hand grips it tightly, a flash of light erupts, and he completely vanishes. A few minutes later, another flash occurs and Boyd rematerializes, fainting onto the floor as technicians quickly step in to secure the unstable device. Daniel drives their damaged car deep into a jungle path until the road completely ends at a deep swamp. Hearing the agents approaching on foot, they jump out. Jane takes a heavy rock, wedges it onto the accelerator pedal, and sends the car plunging deep into the water. When the agents arrive, they see the bubbles and conclude that the target's drowned inside the vehicle, allowing Daniel and Jane to slip away through the woods. Jackson and Margaret arrive at a crowded gas station, where local citizens are panic buying supplies due to the upcoming war. Jackson tries to convince Margaret that they need to go back to the hospital. Margaret tries to explain that she doesn't know how, but an immense world-changing good will come out of all this chaos. Jackson steps into the shop to use a phone, and Margaret walks over to a young kid sitting outside, asking him for help. When Jackson comes back out, he finds the car empty. The kid walks up and tells him that Margaret said she loves him, but she has to go fulfill her purpose. Daniel and Jane safely arrive at an urban motel, where Daniel places a secure call to Hugo. Daniel says his childhood memories are starting to come back, and asks if Hugo recruited him for a specific, engineered reason. Hugo says that when the time comes, everything will be clear, and tells him they need to move to the KCXC studio tomorrow morning. After hanging up, Daniel systematically destroys everything that can reveal their physical location. He then shows Jane Margaret's viral video and asks what she hears. Jane says the woman is just speaking absolute gibberish, but Daniel reveals that to his mind it is actually an advanced mathematical binary code that automatically converts into English in his head. Fearing that Noah will take over her mind again while she sleeps, Jane begs Daniel to securely tie her to a chair for the night so she cannot be used as a weapon against him. Late that night, Jane wakes up as Noah takes complete control of her body once again. Noah forces her to look around the room for clues. Her eyes land on a piece of paper sticking out of Daniel's jacket pocket. Controlling her leg, Noah forces her to kick the jacket, spilling the paper onto the floor and exposing the address of the KCXC news studio. Noah immediately relays this data to his tactical teams. The next morning, Hugo's extraction driver arrives at the motel just as hundreds of agents surround the building. Daniel wakes up, sees the flashing lights, and rushes to untie Jane. They lock themselves inside the small bathroom, just as agents kick down the front door. Realizing they are trapped, Daniel helps Jane scramble through the window, handing her a stack of cash and the real alien device, ordering her to flee. The moment Jane drops into the alleyway, the agents break into the bathroom and throw Daniel to the ground. Hugo's driver manages to escape in the chaos. The agents pins Daniel down, demanding to know where the device is, but Daniel just laughs. Noah arrives at a temporary military base, where agents have strapped Daniel to an interrogation chair. Noah secures Daniel's external drives and demands to know the names of every member of Hugo's team and where the device is hidden. Meanwhile, Margaret is driving a vehicle down the highway when a vivid psychic vision flashes in her mind. She makes a violent U-turn and drives straight toward the guarded perimeter of the Wardex base. A guard draws his weapon at her windshield, but Margaret rolls down her window and starts reciting his exact home address, his deepest secrets, and today's entry code. Completely stunned, the guard lets her pass. She drives right into the center of the base, walks up to an agent, tells him everything about his private life, and demands to see Noah. The bewildered agent escorts her straight into the main command trailer. Inside the trailer, the entire tech team freezes in shock as the viral weather lady walks through the door. She walks straight toward the restrained Daniel, but Noah steps forward to stop her. The moment Margaret locks eyes with Noah, her advanced empathic power activates. Noah gasps, completely paralyzed as Margaret's face morphs, forcing Noah to see the visual likeness of his own wife looking back at him. Boyd tries to lunge forward to stop her, but an emotionally overwhelmed Noah barks a fierce order for everyone to stand down. Margaret walks over to Daniel and frees him, and the two calmly walk out of the trailer with the drives inside his backpack. Boyd tries to radio the perimeter guards to shoot them down, but as Margaret walks past the armed soldiers, she projects a wave of absolute empathy. Every soldier looks at her and sees the visual image of their own loved ones, causing them to lower their weapons in tears as she and Daniel drive away. As they speed down the highway, Margaret explains her powers to Daniel, stating that when she looks someone in the eye, she can practically see their entire life story and memories. She reveals she even knows all about Jane. Daniel asks when she got this power, and she notes it started the exact moment that stray bird landed in front of her. Daniel freezes and pulls the car over near a railway crossing. He confesses that in his 20s, he was wasting his life away with crime and addiction until one afternoon, a bird landed right in front of him. From that exact day forward, his brain could effortlessly solve advanced calculus and read raw binary code. Suddenly, their conversation is cut short as Agent Boyd's heavy SUV rams their vehicle from behind, violently pushing their car onto the active train tracks. Boyd backs up and rams them a second time, pinning them directly into the path of an oncoming freight train. The metal twists as the train clips the vehicle, dragging it down the tracks. Daniel and Margaret scramble out of the shattered windows, desperately trying to hop onto the side ladder of the moving cargo cars. Boyd steps out of his SUV, opening heavy fire with his handgun. Daniel manages to pull himself onto the train, reaching his hand down for Margaret. With a second train roaring down the parallel track just inches away, Margaret takes a jump, narrowly avoiding a fatal impact as both trains roar past each other, allowing them to escape inside the cargo hold. Inside the dark train car, Margaret suffers a severe panic attack, her hands trembling violently. She cries out that she is developing her father's Parkinson's disease, but Daniel gently takes her hands, calming her down and assuring her that the tremors are simply her body adjusting to the immense power flowing through her nervous system. Concurrently, Hugo receives word that Daniel and Margaret have successfully linked up. Suddenly, Hugo winces in intense pain, ordering his staff to clear the room. Across the state, Noah has strapped himself back into the remaining alien machine, successfully forcing a direct psychic connection into Hugo's mind. Hugo begs Noah to stop using the device, warning him that its raw power is destroying his internal organs. Noah furiously accuses Hugo of treason, stating that Hugo manipulated the agency to recruit Daniel under the orders of a classified alien entity known as EB-1-17. Hugo counters that Noah's obsession with military dominance makes him blind to the beauty of an empathic connection. The argument escalates until two of Hugo's security guards rush into the room to assist him, breaking the connection, but not before Noah's mind maps the physical coordinates of the building. Meanwhile, Jane is sitting inside a crowded city diner, using a payphone to contact Sister Mora. Jane asks if it's possible that God created other intelligent species across this massive universe, and wonders if humanity will completely abandon their faith if the truth is revealed. Sister Mora gently responds that true faith resides in the resilience of human beings, urging Jane to have faith in people. As Jane hangs up, a waitress walks over, handing her a stack of cash and a phone, stating that a group of men in a van outside left a message. Jane speaks into the receiver, and Sister Mora delivers the final piece of data she uncovered. The acronym KCXC stands for the Central Kansas City Television News Broadcast Studio. On the city streets, Daniel and Margaret are suddenly captured by a squad of firefighters, but once inside the truck, the men reveal they are actually Hugo's covert operatives. They verify their identities and transport them directly to the main underground base. Hugo greets them with immense joy. Margaret refuses to make direct eye contact with Hugo, stating that if she looks at him, the sheer weight of his secrets will overwhelm her brain. As she looks around the facility, she gasps, noticing that Hugo has constructed a massive, structurally perfect replica of her exact childhood home inside the warehouse. Hugo explains that to unlock the final piece of the puzzle, they need to recreate the exact environment of the night she and Daniel first met as children. Margaret panics, stating she doesn't want to remember the trauma, but Hugo insists that their gifts have a definitive cosmic purpose. He reveals that the extraterrestrials specifically engineered both of them decades ago to act as a living bridge between the two species. Daniel was given the gift of universal language to decode their advanced data, while Margaret was given absolute human empathy to understand the soul of humanity. Together, they can make the connection between the two species. Hugo takes out the stolen device, placing it gently into both of their hands simultaneously. The machine glows white, and both Daniel and Margaret are instantly thrust into a shared childhood flashback. They see a young Margaret singing in the backyard, when a pack of glowing woodland animals emerges from the tree line. Young Margaret follows them deep into the dark forest. In the flashback, Daniel screams out that those things aren't real animals. Hugo's memory voice explains that the entities merely projected the image of familiar animals so the children wouldn't get scared. The memory shifts to a house in the woods. Inside a sterile laboratory, the illusion dissolves, revealing the true, towering alien forms of the entities. A young Daniel sits tucked in the corner, paralyzed with fear, while a young Margaret reaches out, gently holding his hand to comfort him. The extraterrestrial entities step forward, injecting their advanced power into the children's heads. The flashback violently ends, and Margaret snaps back to reality, her eyes glowing with absolute, fully realized cosmic power. She looks at Hugo, now fully understanding everything. Suddenly, the base's alarms blare as Wardx tactical teams completely surround the warehouse. Margaret stands up, holding the alien device, and closes her eyes. Outside, heavily armed Wardx strike teams breach the front doors with rifles raised. But as they storm the main floor, they find the warehouse completely empty. In the control van, technicians scream that their thermal imaging cameras show dozens of heat signatures standing right in front of the team, but the space is physically vacant. Margaret is actively using the device's immense power to bend light waves, completely cloaking the entire team in total invisibility. Daniel moves through the cloaked zone, instructing everyone to leave silently. As they walk, the alien device begins to glow brighter from the physical strain. Noah realizes what is happening, screaming over the radio for his agents to be silent and watch for moving light sources. An agent lunges forward but collides heavily with the invisible frame of a fire truck. The operatives start the invisible engines, turning on the loud sirens to completely disorient the troops. The invisible vehicles burst through the bay doors, splitting into two separate paths down the city streets. Agent Boyd demands to know which truck to pursue, but Noah states there is only one logical destination left: the Kansas City News Studio. The invisible fire trucks arrive at the rear unloading dock of the Kansas City News Studio, their cloaking fields finally collapsing as the alien device completely burns out from heavy usage. Hugo, Daniel, and Margaret storm the facility. Margaret locates her terrified boss in the hallway, using a brief wave of her empathic power to instantly calm him down and convince him to grant them absolute control of the main broadcast stage. Daniel rushes into the central technical control room, plugging his encrypted external drives into the mainframe, initiating a massive, irreversible data upload of the entire Wardx database. The studio producer runs up to Margaret, thanking her in tears, revealing that the tip Margaret gave her earlier successfully allowed the police to rescue her friend and ensure she is safe. Margaret walks onto the live news set, gently stepping in front of the active news anchor to prepare for a special announcement. Outside, multiple Wardx tactical vans screech to a halt. Agent Boyd and his team sprint into the building, planting heavy C4 explosives on the studio's main electrical transformers and backup generators to kill the broadcast. Inside the control room, the progress bar on Daniel's upload hits 100%. Suddenly, the Wardx bombs detonate outside, plunging the entire television studio into pitch-black darkness as the power grid fails. A few agonizing seconds pass before the emergency backup generators kick in, restoring partial power to the computers. Daniel shouts to Margaret that they are running out of time. Just as they are about to push the feed live to the airwaves, a second explosion echoes through the building. The Wardx strike team has successfully destroyed the backup generator, cutting the broadcast feed entirely. Noah walks onto the darkened stage with a squad of armed agents, preparing to place Margaret under arrest. Suddenly, the rear studio doors fly open, and Jane sprints onto the set, holding the secondary alien device she carried from the motel. She throws the glowing unit directly into Margaret's hands. The moment Margaret grips the technology, an immense shockwave of raw cosmic energy radiates through the studio. Every single monitor, camera, teleprompter, and broadcasting transmitter instantly boots back up, humming with a blinding, self-sustaining blue energy. Noah looks at the impossible display, completely defeated. He slowly lowers his weapon and sits down in a studio chair. Agent Boyd screams at him, demanding to know if they are going to physically stop them, but a serene Noah looks up and whispers that he simply wants to see the show. Disgusted by his commander's weakness, Boyd abandons his post, fleeing the building with his remaining loyal agents. Daniel slams his hand onto the master control switch, bypassing local television towers and hardwiring the feed directly into the global emergency satellite network, forcing every major international news agency across the globe to carry their live feed. The cameras flash green, and Margaret Fairchild goes live to the entire human race. With absolute poise and profound empathy, she reveals to the world the existence of the 79-year Wardx conspiracy. She details the horrific systematic torture of these advanced entities, the illegal reverse engineering of their world-changing technology for corporate greed, and the deliberate manipulation of global politics to keep humanity divided. She announces to the planet that today is officially Disclosure Day. Daniel hits the playback trigger, and billions of televisions across the globe simultaneously display the undeniable raw evidence. Military fighter jets engaging with massive alien motherships, crystal-clear footage of extraterrestrial crash sites, and the heartbreaking historical records of government medical experiments on living entities. Across the world, ordinary citizens, high-ranking military generals, and frontline soldiers lock their eyes onto the screens. In the Atlantic and European theaters, the breaking news forces an immediate, total ceasefire between the United States and Russian forces. The impending threat of World War III instantly vanishes, as humanity realizes they are not alone in the universe. Back in the studio unloading bay, Hugo opens a massive, heavily armored containment crate. From the shadows of the box, an ancient, towering, highly revered alien survivor slowly steps out into the light. Daniel and Margaret walk down from the stage, approaching the magnificent entity. The creature tilts its head, its eyes glowing, as it projects a complex mathematical and emotional sequence directly into Daniel's mind. Daniel closes his eyes, instantly decoding the universal binary, and turns to Margaret, passing her the final translation. Margaret steps back in front of the global camera, looking out at a completely transformed human civilization. She prepares to deliver the first official, peaceful cosmic message from an advanced universe to the people of Earth, looking directly into the lens as she utters a single powerful word: listen. If you enjoyed this recap, drop a like and subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on the best stories. Until next time, keep watching and we'll see you in the next movie.